I was in the barber shop yesterday getting this haircut. I go to this specific barber shop because it has a very personal vibe. It has a little bit of culture. People always chatting and carrying on about politics or what's going on in the city. Always a lot of fun. But yesterday, a man was talking about sailboats and his friend who disappeared on one, a topic right up my alley. Canadian sailor Jay Caunter sold all his possessions and chased his dream of sailing around the Caribbean Sea. Now, the 68-year-old captain is missing after reporting engine trouble on his yacht, the Venture. Let's see if we can figure out what happened and what we can learn from it. The man in the barber shop was talking about his friend Jay, who had lived in Toronto and Quebec. Jay had long had the calling to the sea, but he worked his whole life until his dad got sick. He moved home to Quebec to take care of his dad until his dad finally passed, leaving Jay with no responsibilities. In his 60s now, he decided to chase the dream. He needed a big enough boat to go solo to the Caribbean, and he found Venture in Sarnia, a 1979 Sabre 34. This Sabre was designed in-house at Sabre Yachts and generally considered to be a fast cruiser, very good on club race nights around the marks. At 34 feet, her beam is a skinny 10'5". She displaces 11,400 pounds, and this particular example of the 34 was the shoal keel model with centerboard. They made about 250 of this boat from 1976 on to 85, and they're very common to find in racing clubs. They came factory with the Universal Atomic 4 engine, and Jay's boat had a feathering prop, which would later become part of the story. Hull speed on the 34 is about 6.8 and CSF is 1.87, so by that metric, a fairly safe boat for ocean work, especially light-duty ocean work in the Caribbean. The man in the barber shop filled in a lot of the story for me as he helped Jay get the boat to New York. The boat sailed down from Sarnia to Lake Erie, then up Lake Ontario for some social calls. He could have gone on Lake Erie right to Buffalo, but opted to spend some time in Lake Ontario before heading down the Hudson River via the tail end of the Erie Canal. The man commented on how Jay was still learning the boat and the electronics at that time. They almost missed the inlet for the northbound canal to Lake Ontario, going toward Niagara Falls instead. Jay would go on largely alone down the east coast of the US and ultimately finally find himself realizing his dream of getting down to the islands. I want to take a second to comment on this boat, the Sabre 34, an excellent racer cruiser with a very good reputation. A bit light by most standards for Caribbean work, but definitely capable. 34 feet might seem small by today's standards, but Jay was cruising alone, which makes this size just right. Jay didn't have a strong social media presence, so we don't know how well the boat was outfitted, but judging by the pictures, she looks to be in very good shape. Jay would spend a few years cruising the islands before finding any trouble. He would spend hurricane season on the southern end in Grenada and then sail north again in the safe months to explore the Caribbean. Perfect. He had accomplished his dream. In a news article, another sailor, last name Prince, explained his interactions with Jay. He said, "I'd like to tell the people close with Jay and his family that we were with him for his last week or so," adding that he was sailing with friends in the Grenadines. Prince explained they had a solo sailor Canadian sailing group of 3 different boats, him on sabbatical, Ron on Moxie, and Dave aboard the Robin. We met Jay first in Bequia. We asked Jay if he'd like to join us while we were in Martinique. He agreed. We invited him to our WhatsApp group. Prince said the group broke up briefly and he was in St. Lucia with Hamilton, while James was in St. Vincent and Conter was in Martinique. Eventually, we were all able to meet in Chateau Belair, St. Vincent. Jay had lost use of his prop at this point coming down to Chateau Belair, so we ended up towing him in on Monday, February 17th. In discussion with Jay about his prop problem, it was decided he would have to haul the boat out of the water. Prince explained that the following day is when everything kind of went wrong. Jay's boat with no prop and no use of the engine was dragging anchor and being dragged out into the bay. Prince said he was ready in his dinghy to go tow him back in, but he got a message from Jay saying, "No, don't come out. I'm just going to put my sails up and continue on. I'll meet you further south." The last WhatsApp message they got that day was at 4:49 p.m. He said he had been hit by a squall with 44 knot winds, but was able to get back on course. He also said that he had to bail his dinghy. Prince assumed that the squall filled the dinghy up with water. He said he had never done that while under sail. Prince goes on to say he's speculating, but Jay could have fallen overboard. The man in the barber shop was also aware and explains that the feathering prop on Venture had failed and was not able to provide thrust anymore. Jay wanted to haul out to fix it, but when he tried in St. Vincent, he was put on a 6-week waiting list. He bounced from place to place trying to get a better answer, but he got the same answer everywhere. Waiting list. It simply wasn't an emergency to haul out a single man on a 34-foot sailboat. Part of the problem was that a lot of the facilities cater to the much bigger, more expensive boats. There simply isn't a lot of financial incentive to help a guy on a small sailboat. Jay eventually decided to simply keep sailing with no motor and find help in Grenada, which does have a very good track record of hauling out smaller boats. The theory is the mechanism in the feathering prop had failed, and rather than snorkeling down to remove the prop, Jay opted to haul out. Perhaps there was more going on, because most people would have dove down and unbolted the prop. Perhaps a problem with the cutlass bearing or the stuffing box. We'll never really know. A Facebook post later explained what happened after Jay left St. Vincent. It says, GPS tracks show SV Venture traveling south approximately 2 nautical miles off the west coast of St. Vincent. In the vicinity of Leu, a drastic change of course is recorded on the track, but original course is resumed after traveling north-northeast for roughly 1 nautical mile. At the time, there are unconfirmed reports of squalls in that area. Approximately 3 nautical miles further south, there's another significant deviation as the track abruptly turns north-northwest. The final recorded GPS position on February 25th, 6:21 UTC is approximately 25 nautical miles northwest of where the second course change occurred. The speed recorded is 1.2 knots, which would indicate a drifting vessel. The direction of movement is in line with the local prevailing winds. Taking into account the prevailing winds and general direction recorded on the vessel movements, the Bolo watch area should be expanded westward at a rate of 50 nautical miles each day since the position was last recorded. All evidence seems to suggest that Jay fell off the boat, and the boat, not under human control, simply drifted with the prevailing winds. But the kicker is, the AIS stopped broadcasting, and the boat and Jay were never found. The story never really ended, they all just disappeared. If we assume Jay fell overboard, we would also have to assume that the boat must have been taking on water because it was never found and it stopped reporting on AIS. The batteries could have died, causing the AIS to fail, but the boat was never found. These would all just be assumptions. Unless Venture is found, we'll never actually have answers. I'm very happy that Jay was able to finally chase his dream of sailing south. He seemed to have a good plan on a good boat to actually do it on. The lessons here for us are pretty plentiful. If you have the dream of sailing south, go early. You never know who's going to get sick and call you back to land. So don't assume that tomorrow will still be there. If you want to go do this, go ASAP. Jack lines and harnesses. If you're going to do it alone, many people do, no problem, but it will require a much higher state of alert and safety. If you fall off, the boat will keep going, and not even the fastest swimmer can catch a sailboat. 26 miles offshore is a very long way away from any help. If you're alone, under motor or sail, PFD always and tie into something on the boat. Jack lines and harnesses and clip in no matter what. If you have to go bail the dinghy out, bring the boat to a stop if you can. Douse the sails, pull the dinghy alongside to sister it up, and then bail it out while clipped in. Also, under loss of engine, a good dinghy is more than capable of moving your sailboat along. Sister it up and throttle the dinghy up, but use the sailboat rudder to steer. I've done this to help many people and it works very well. A sailboat will cruise along at 3 or 4 knots with a dinghy sistered up to it, providing the thrust. My heart goes out to Jay's family and friends. He was well liked in the cruising community and everyone who met him said the same thing. Jay was a good man. Something I think we can all strive to be. We study these things to try to learn from them so that we can be safer on our own boats. The mission here at Lady K Sailing has always been to get more people sailing more easily, and I sure couldn't do it without you guys. A big shout out to the patrons who make these videos possible. Thank you so very much. If you'd like to help me with the mission, please consider becoming a patron. If you like sailboat videos, please give this one a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so that you can see more. Until next time, friends, keep the heavy side down, but not too far down. I love you guys.